Hello, today we're here with Joe Krolikowski, the Technical Director at Johnson Registrars, and we'll be discussing the ISO 9001-2015 transition. So Joe, my first question for you is, if a company is presently certified to the ISO 9001-2008, how long do they have to transition to the 2015 version?
Well, the International Organization for Standardization, the ISO, when they published ISO 9001-2015, they established September of 2018 as the expiration date for ISO 9001-2008. That means that any certifications that are issued to ISO 9001-2008 will no longer be valid after that September cutoff. So working backwards from that, PJR established May of 2018 as our cutoff for transition audits. This is due to the fact that we have a finite amount of administrative resources, we have a finite amount of auditors, and we need to be assured that we will complete the transition process from audit all the way through to certificate issuance with the right amount of time. So based on that, we've established May 14th of 2018 as the official cutoff date for the transition audit.
What options does a company have to complete their transition?
Well, we recognize that for a lot of our clients, there's going to be a need to transition. For some of them, it's going to be sooner. For some of them, they're going to want to put it off a little bit. And we want to be as flexible as possible in meeting our clients' needs. Our preferred approach would be to do it as part of the recertification audit. The recertification audit already has additional audit time. It already comes with a new certificate. So that's the ideal method, is to do it as part of recertification. But we realize that that isn't going to work for everybody. There are going to be clients that are going to want to do it as part of a surveillance audit. And so we've got options for those clients as well. If you are an annual surveillance audit client, we will accommodate a transition as part of a single annual surveillance audit. If you are a semi-annual surveillance client, we will accommodate you over a single semi-annual surveillance or even 2 consecutive semi-annual surveillance audits. Now, our preference is that our clients get it done in one step, but if you are a semi-annual surveillance client and you want to do it in 2 consecutive steps, we will accommodate you.
Okay. I've heard a lot about the Annex SL. What exactly is that?
Annex SL is part of a larger ISO publication called Directives Part 1. Directives Part 1 is kind of a standard on how to write standards. And Annex SL, as the name would imply, is a portion of this larger standard. Annex SL was written back in 2012, and it was kind of the first step in the evolution of the ISO family of standards. What they wanted to accomplish with Annex SL was, let's establish a common framework for our standards. So what Annex SL is, it's a 10-section framework, and it includes, here's what the section titles are going to be. Here's what some of the core terminology is going to be. And working from this, the ISO then went back and retooled ISO 9001 and ISO 14001. Both of those standards were published in 2015. And if you look at those standards, they've got the same 10-section structure to them, same section titles. All of that was intentional. Historically, if a company wanted to have more than one certification, it often meant that they had to have multiple systems. You would have, for example, in a 9001 and 14001 situation, you'd have a set of documents for 9001 and a whole other set of documents for 14001. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of administrative work to have 2 systems. And so the ISO recognized that there's got to be a better way to do this for companies that want multiple certifications. So by having a common framework, if a company wants to have 2 or 3 or 4 or more certifications, they can do so, and the administrative portion of it is not going to be so onerous now that it's under a common structure. The intent is that all of the ISO family of standards will be transitioned to the Annex SL format by 2017. That's the long-term plan, and that's a lot of standards. That's a lot of work that needs to be done, but they're well on their way with accomplishing that.
Now, what are the key differences between the ISO 9001, 2008, and 2015 version?
There's a couple of key differences that companies are going to notice right off the bat. The first and most obvious difference is that they have eliminated the last of the required procedures. ISO 9001 1994 had 16 required procedures. When it transitioned to the 2000 version of the standard, there were 6. Now there's none. Now this doesn't mean that procedures can no longer be part of your quality system. It just means that they aren't required in the same manner that they were before. The ISO wants people to feel comfortable controlling their processes in the way that works best for them. You can control your process however you see fit. If a procedure is part of that equation, that's fine, but it doesn't have to be anymore. Another key difference is the whole concept of risk-based thinking. Now, in the past versions of the standard, we had preventive action. Preventive action was a kind of a standalone section, and they wanted that idea to be expanded. They wanted it to be system-wide. And what they've done with risk-based thinking is they've said, okay, you have a quality system that's made up of multiple processes. As a leadership team, as an organization, you should be wary of challenges that are coming and be ready for those challenges and identify, what am I going to do to take care of this issue before it happens? What am I going to do to integrate that into my processes? So there's a whole new section now on risk-based thinking or risk management, which is another term that's used to explain this whole idea. The last really key idea that has come about is the whole idea of interested parties. This is, again, an expansion of an old idea. The older versions of the standard all talked about customers. And customers are still very much an important piece of what makes up a quality system and how an organization does its business. But the terminology interested parties expands who plays a role in what we do. So this includes not just customers, but suppliers and unions and bankers and competitors and all of these influences that an organization is probably already considering anyway, but now it's part of the certification structure. Now, I do want to add, and this is key, the standard does say that it's up to the organization to determine who the relevant interested parties are. But the term is intended to kind of expand who might that be and how do they play a role in what we do with our quality system.
All right, my last question for you is, what should a company do to be prepared for their transition?
Well, there's a couple of steps that are really critical. And the first and most important step is to purchase a copy of the standard. Get a copy of the standard, assemble your leadership team, and go through the standard. Now, you're going to find that a lot of what's in this new standard already was present in ISO 9001 2008. Now, PJR has actually prepared a transition grid. It's available right on our website where you can compare the two standards side by side. All of the old requirements, for the most part, are in the new standard. They've just been rearranged. So that's a critical first step. Buy a copy of the standard and go through it. The next step, I would say, is to put together a gap list. What are the things that we need to do to successfully transition to this standard? Who's going to be responsible for those things? How are we going to time this out? What needs to go first, and so forth. Once you've implemented all of those items, have an internal audit. Have your internal auditors go through your system, make sure that they've audited all of the processes and ascertained your level of implementation against the new standard. Once that is finished, have a management review meeting. Follow up on the results of all of your efforts, the review, the internal audit, and so forth. Once that's finished, bring in PJR to do the official transition audit, and you should have an extremely successful transition process if you follow that order of events.
Perfect. Well, thank you for watching. If you have any additional questions, you can visit our website, www.pjr.com, or contact us at 800-800-7910. Thank you.